Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to ET Health World webinar. To present this webinar, I welcome Dr. Sanjit Singh Lamba, Managing Director, ASI Pharmaceuticals India, on the topic, Why a Pill is Not Just a Pill. There will be a presentation on the topic followed by a question and answer session wherein you may submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Now I request Dr. Sanjit Lamba to start the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar, Why a Pill is Not Just a Pill. You must be thinking, why we are saying this. A pill is much more than what we see in the hands of a patient or a consumer. If you see the global pharmaceutical industry, it faces the challenge today of upgrading the quality systems as per the evolving regulatory standards, while delivering the life-saving medicines simultaneously. India is not an exception. While the industry is moving towards complex products and integrating new technologies, there is also a need to make quality processes more robust to meet the challenges of regulatory agencies. The Indian industry has demonstrated a strong commitment towards ensuring affordable and accessible medicines globally. As the third largest pharmaceutical industry worldwide by volume of production and 13th by value, the Indian pharmaceutical industry is a major contributor to the Make in India initiative. Pharma exports from India are expected to touch $30 billion by 2020. And the pharma sector is the fourth largest contributor also to the Indian exports. Almost, if you see, 60% of the world's vaccines come from India. And the largest number of US FDA approved plants outside the US are also from India. In general, 1/3 of all the medicines which are available in the global markets are supplied from India. So Indian pharma companies have more than 20% of prescription market share in the US today. The pharmaceutical industry has begun to adopt a move beyond the pill strategy to ensure its medicines are used to their fullest potential. Currently, driven by the evolving current good manufacturing practices, regulatory expectations, and the complexity of operations, the global and Indian pharmaceutical industry together faces the dual challenge of, on one side, upgrading the quality standards, and on the other side, delivering the life-saving medicines at affordable prices. In particular, the quality issues affecting the supply reliability were identified as a major challenge for the industry. Let's first look at why a pill is not just a pill. So we are going to look at, in general, the pharmaceutical quality, what it is meant, the quality standards, what do you mean by pharmaceutical equivalent and bioequivalent? What do we mean by quality of medicines and how do we really assure that quality? And finally, the quality of a pill is not just at the end of manufacturing. The quality of pill is much more from development to delivery, and that's what we're going to talk about, quality and the supply chain management. If we look at the pharmaceutical quality, I'm going to go a little in a more simplistic way because I know there may be some students or junior executives in this webinar. So most of the other senior members may be aware of this. So please excuse me for that. The pharmaceutical quality is the suitability of either a drug substance. Drug substance is a basic drug in a product like a tablet. For example, paracetamol is the active ingredient in a branded product. And when you say drug product means the final tablet or a capsule or injection. So the suitability of a product for its intended use is the first reason we say that the product quality is good or not. It includes very important parameters as identity, strength, and purity. When we say identity, that means we know that in a paracetamol tablet, it contains only paracetamol tablets. It doesn't have any kind of a mix-up from any other kind of a basic drug. Strength means you have a 500 mg or 250 mg paracetamol in a tablet. And purity means it is free from any other contaminants and it's pure drug which is there in a product. The drug product, that is products like tablets and capsules, if you look at what the other quality parameters are, and they are patient safety and therapeutic efficacy. Safety is very important because the patient should not get adversely affected by the product he or she is administering. And therapeutic efficacy is for what you are taking the drug for benefit of the patients. So if you look at the pharma quality assurance, it means we have to assure that the medicine that reaches the patient is safe, effective, and acceptable to the patient. Now, over the years in the industry here, the pharmaceutical quality systems have moved from quality by testing to quality by design. So the traditional model of quality testing means you take a product, test in the lab, and see if it is good, acceptable as per the specifications of the product, it is passed, otherwise it is rejected. So over the years, when it was only quality by testing, the last many years we have seen a shift happening to inspection oriented risk averse compliance programs. That means there is change happening, not only quality by testing, but also there are many other inspection processes and also the other assurance parameters which are taken into consideration. The next stage is assurance of the consistent quality, safety, and efficacy, and that's our objective. Consistency is very important. That's why quality assurance plays a very important role in making sure the product is always delivered the same quality all the time in different batches, different times of the year, it's of same quality. And our objective is, how do we really build quality in the design during development so that we are not only checking the quality by testing or by assurance, we have a well-developed, robust design of a quality built into a product during research and development operations. So over the years, it was a paradigm shift moving from traditional approach to adoption of modern systems-based approach, which is quality by design. Now, if you look at what are the goals of quality assurance program for medicines, it's to make sure that when the product reaches the patient, it is safe, effective, and of standard quality. So there are two major areas where the quality is checked, controlled, and monitored. And first is quality in manufacturing. Here, we manufacture the products through a guidelines called as good manufacturing practices, called GMP. In some terms, we also say CGMP because we want to make sure that these good manufacturing practices are current in nature. They are latest. The second part of quality is in the supply chain management, which assures that the quality products through appropriate storage, distribution, and use. So the quality is also very important during transportation of a product from factory to various retailers and also finally to the hands of the patient. So the temperature control wherever required in a product must be maintained during storage, distribution, and logistics till it reaches the patient. We look at the various quality standards. So if you look at the Indian good manufacturing practices, we have a law called Drug and Cosmetic Act of 1940, and Schedule M is a part of the Drug and Cosmetic Act. It lays down the guidelines for GMP for pharmaceuticals that should be followed for all the pharmaceutical manufacturers in India. It's a part of overall umbrella of good manufacturing practices, as I said, CGMP, is that aspect of quality assurance that ensures that the medicinal products are consistently produced and controlled to the quality standards for which they are meant for or for intended use. And they must qualify the specifications. Each product has its own specification, and each product or a tablet or a capsule must qualify these specifications. The regulations by the government in the form of a Schedule M gives flexibility to the manufacturers. Some of the manufacturers, they want to adopt latest technologies, so it gives flexibility to them to adopt these modern technologies to achieve higher quality through a continuous improvement process. And as I said, assuring quality of every batch every day in a consistent way is extremely important for every pharmaceutical manufacturer. This is very interesting how the GMPs evolved over a period of time. Now in 1937, there was a very famous or infamous disaster called Sulfanilamide Disaster, in which in 1937, a product, elixir sulfanilamide, which was an antibacterial product, was given to the patients, and out of administration, 105 people had died in 1937. And that was because the product was adulterated with diethylene glycol, which should not be used in pharmaceutical products. This gave rise to the Good Manufacturing Practice Codes of 1938, which was started in United States of America. Similarly, in 1950, another tragedy struck. That was thalidomide's tragedy, a product which was used by the expectant mothers for morning sickness, actually led to more than 5,000 birth defects in newborn babies. And this was a large disaster which gave rise to the new current Good Manufacturing Practices and FDC Act of 1962 that required manufacturers to prove the efficacy claims of the drugs which was being put on the labels. So as you see, there are a number of other disasters, but these were two major disasters which led all the countries to start working on their own good manufacturing practice regulations and guidelines. As I said, India is governed by Schedule M, and in Schedule M, there are a number of chapters which talk about what are the various guidelines on manufacturing of a product. And as you would see, the next slide would have a little bit more details. But if you look at Schedule M is already implemented in India, and it was in those years of 2003 when the government promoted Schedule M, and large pharmaceutical and small pharmaceutical companies started implementing Schedule M into their manufacturing practices. If we look at today, the government is promoting that after approximately 15 years of Schedule M implementation, India should graduate to the next level of GMP compliance, which is World Health Organization GMP. And the next level is Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, which is a harmonized regulation, which is also being followed by many countries, including few emerging countries. And you will have stringent regulatory agencies like US FDA, Medicinal Healthcare Regulation Agency, MHRA of UK, and PMDA of Japan. These are considered to be the three major leading stringent regulatory agencies. By using this process flow, we can assure that over a period of time, we want to graduate to the next level of WHO, then PICX, and over a time, we will see that we are growing toward more stringent regulatory agencies. So by implementing WHO GMP and PICS, India can aim for meeting stringent global standards. Even yesterday, the Drug Controller General of India recommended that WHO GMP and PICS should be implemented in India over a period of time. and it's a good initiative, positive initiative by the government. If you look at the next Schedule M versus WHO GMP, there are various requirements laid down in the Schedule M which talk about the site where it is manufactured, the buildings, premises, water system, waste disposable, and various other areas of control. On the other side, you see WHO GMP has a similar level of controls which are required to be followed for manufacturing. But there are few regulations, there are few guidances which are more in detail. For example, pharmaceutical quality system, for example, risk management, qualification, validation, and also overall quality management system as per ICH Q10, which is mainly observed by the WHO GMP. So if we compare WHO and Schedule M, we see that there are no major differences in respect to the basic GMP requirements. The WHO GMP guidelines over the years have evolved to adopt to modern quality management system concepts of ICH Q9, which is risk-based control. More is the risk, better are the controls, more stringent are the controls required. And Q10, which is a quality management system. As I said, quality risk management is a major area of focus for WHO GMP, and it is integrated in every aspect of quality management system. One of the major areas which is defined by WHO GMP and also by stringent regulatory agencies is data integrity. That's very clearly defined in WHO guidance. That refers to maintaining and assuring the accuracy and consistency of the data which is generated during manufacturing. So all the data, who manufactured, when it was manufactured, what time the product was finally cleared by the quality assurance, everything remains in the data management as far as the servers are concerned. So there is a control required for data integrity, and over the last few years, data integrity control has become the major control required by stringent regulatory agencies, including WHO. Also, there are various technical reports which WHO define on individual quality systems, like how the sampling is to be conducted, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, hold studies, good warehousing practices, good distribution practices, good storage practices, which are right now not defined in Schedule M. So over the years, there's a move that we move on to a WHO GMP standard, so at least we can be at par with various developing countries who are following good manufacturing practices. Now let's look at the pharmaceutical equivalents and the bioequivalents, and what do we mean by that? When there are two products, as you see on the right hand side, there are two products. For example, we can say that these are two paracetamol tablets. How do we know that they are equivalent? Equivalent in efficacy, equivalence in effect. That's more important. So let's look at what is a pharma equivalent. In simplistic terms, if a product, or let's say a tablet, contains paracetamol 500 mg and the other tablet also contains the same, we say that there is the same amount of the active substance, that is a paracetamol, in the tablet for the same route of administration. That means it's an oral product to be taken orally, and they are meeting the same or comparable standards which are given in the official specifications like pharmacopoeias. So we say these two products are pharmaceutical equivalent. But is this enough? No, because the efficacy of a product comes from bioequivalence. That means if the product is administered orally by using water, and after administration the tablet dissolves in the stomach, and the active ingredient or the basic drug paracetamol then slowly goes into the bloodstream, because that's where the effect happens to the patient. So the two drugs who are given administration the same molar dose, like 500 mg, are similar to such a degree that their effect and respect to both efficacy and safety are equivalent. That means they are expected to be essentially similar products in efficacy. That means the release of a drug from the tablet into the bloodstream, the extent and the rate of release, which I will explain on the next slide, is equivalent. Then we say they are bioequivalent. And that's the key indicator for efficacy of a product. For example, if you look at a tablet A and a tablet B, they are given to two different tablets. And on the right hand side, we look at when the tablet gets dissolved in the stomach, in the fluids, and gets absorbed into the bloodstream, you see different concentrations of these two different tablets, blue one and the red one. They are behaving differently. One is affecting earlier, it reaches the blood concentration earlier, other is reaching later. And that's where we say that even if both the tablets look the same, they are not the same because their rate of release and extent of release of a drug, they are different. Now let's look at what is a generic versus an innovator brand. As you know, Indian pharmaceutical market is around 85% generic. There are very few branded innovative products which are there because Indian pharmaceutical industry is primarily a generic or a branded generic industry. Also, the drug prices in India are the lowest in the world. So if we compare what is a generic versus innovator brand, a generic and innovator contain the same active ingredient as the originator medicine. For example, the active ingredient remains the same in them, but there are some other excipients, or we say other materials which are mixed with the basic drug to make a tablet or a capsule. They may be different between a brand and a generic. And sometimes they also become the major reason why the quality of a brand or a generic or a two generic products is different. These two should be identical in strength, dosage form, and route of administration. They should have the same indications of use. That means they should be, for example, used for fever, like paracetamol tablets. One of the very important thing is they should be bioequivalent, like we saw in the previous slide, and they should meet the same requirements for identity, strength, purity, and quality. The most important is they should be manufactured under the same strict conditions of good manufacturing practice regulations, for example, Schedule M India right now. Now, if you look at the quality of medicines, what are the major contributors for medicine quality? First of all, is the identity of a product, the active ingredient. For example, when we are looking at paracetamol, the active ingredient quality itself is a major determination or a determinator for difference in quality or similarity in quality of two products. Few active ingredients are more pure in nature. The other active ingredients may have some impurities. They may be of a different physical properties and little bit different chemical properties, but they meet the same basic requirement. So what happens is the drugs which are highly pure in nature, they may be better in quality, and those which have impurities would be of a lesser quality. Important area, another one is the purity. That means the product should not be contaminated with potentially harmful substances like impurities, like fungal contamination. For example, if you see, there have been many deaths in hospitals for patients which were administered IV fluids, and those IV fluids were contaminated with bacterial or fungal contaminations, and that was the reason for some deaths and potential loss of deaths in some cases. So purity is a very, very important. That means whatever materials are being used, active ingredient or excipients, they must be without any potential harmful substances. The third is potency. That means the label claim. When we say 500 milligram or 100 milligram of a drug in a tablet, that we talk about that this is the potency of a product. That is the label amount. Usually during testing, the pharmacopoeia prescribes that this should be between 90% to 110% of the label amount, and all those products which are beyond these limits, they fail the test for potency. The fourth is uniformity. which means consistency between the tablets or capsules or injections of for color, shape, size, look, labeling, and basically the core part of a product. That means each tablet should have the similar potency, purity, and consistency. The fifth one is bioavailability, and that's what is the right now the key differentiator. In India right now, bioavailability is never a consideration or a criteria for a generic product to be made available in the market. Two products which are available, even if they are not bioavailable to the patient, but they are available in the country. So it is up to us then to look at, are these products equivalent? And that's why is a major question, is a pill just a pill? No, it is much beyond that. So two pills may not be similar, they may be dissimilar as far as bioavailability is concerned. So we have to really look at and depend upon the doctor's prescription when they give that we should use the same product as prescribed and not any other product which is an alternate product from a chemist or a pharmacist. A very important differentiator of a quality of a product is stability. That means till the shelf life of a product, which is generally 24 months or 36 months, the product should remain efficacious, of high potency and purity, and that means the patient should get benefit by the end of the shelf life of a product. Two different products may be having a different stability. That one product may be unstable, it may be having a shelf life of only 18 months, other product may be having a shelf life of 24 months. This is also one of the criteria of quality of a product. Sometimes the product is stable if under test conditions of storage and distribution within the pharmaceutical company, but when the product moves across the supply chain in the market under very adverse temperature conditions like today, 40 degrees and beyond, and if it is not stored properly on the shelf, there may be a degradation of a product into impurities, and that is the reason for degradation of a product. The product remains destabilized then. So identity, purity, potency, uniformity, these are the criteria which are defined in pharmacopoeias, which are official books of reference for products. And they are also stated in certificate of analysis, or simply called as a COA of each lot of a product. When you look at what is the impact of the low quality medicines, so the low quality may be because of improper manufacturing process, improper packaging, improper transportation, storage conditions are not maintained. It results into a low quality or a poor quality. What it means for the patient is the lack of therapeutic effect, that the patient does not get benefit or the illness is prolonged. It may also get a toxic or adverse reactions. For example, I was explaining because of IV fluids, which are very critical in nature. It goes directly to your blood through an injection. It can even lead to death. Then, if it is not of any efficacy, there's a wastage of limited financial resources of the patients. There's a loss of also credibility for the pharmaceutical company whose product is of a low quality. And it leads to distress to the patients and their family members, because there's a trust which the patient has on the product, and if it's broken, sometimes it is all because of a low quality or a poor quality product. Let's look at how the medicine quality is assured. And there are different processes. The first and foremost is the process of research and development. And the objective of the development is to design the product in such a way so that quality is built up, followed by the principles of quality by design, simply called as a QBD. So the purpose is to develop a flexible and a robust product through risk management principles and following the principles of critical process parameters which are to be followed during manufacturing, and also critical quality attributes which are observed during in-process quality assurance and also during quality control. The next stage is manufacturing, and as we discussed earlier, The key area is whether the product is manufactured under good manufacturing practices. And that's where the differentiation comes from various companies. The top companies, they may manufacture a product under very stringent controls of GMP, and others may not. And the variations may come during manufacturing in the form of a man or a machine, materials, or methods. So if the personnel which are employed during manufacturing process, they are not competent and they are not proficient in the CGMP principles and they have not understood the processes, it may lead to variation in the quality of a product. Similarly, if the machines which are used during manufacturing process, they are not of high precision or they are not very well controlled, they may lead to variation in the product quality. That means one tablet may be having a lower weight, another tablet may be having a little higher weight, one tablet may be having a hardness which is sufficient for a tablet to withstand during various jerks during distribution and logistics. Other tablet may be soft, and that is the reason because of improper precision of an equipment. The third, what's very, very important in many cases, is the materials which are used in processing. As we said, the active ingredient itself, the basic drug, the various raw materials which are mixed with the basic drug to form a tablet or a capsule, that may bring variability in the quality of a product. So very strict supplier controls are essential if you are buying these raw materials from various vendors. So we have to follow a similar kind of a quality assurance program for development and for receipt for testing of materials from these vendors. And within the company, the method of manufacturing. And that's very important because that's where the GMP gives stress that it should always result in consistency of a product. If there are good operational controls and there are very clear written instructions in the form of work instructions or standard operating procedures called SOPs, and the people are trained regularly on these SOPs, the chances of variability are reduced to a large extent. And finally, once a product leaves the manufacturing location and after given the clearance by the quality assurance, it goes through a distribution process where the product goes through transportation, and also if there's no adequate temperature or control or security and cleanliness, all the products which are still manufactured using good manufacturing practices may be damaged, may be rendered of low quality or poor quality during distribution process. And that happens if the product is not stored properly during distribution. Suppose the temperature requirements of storage are between 15 degree to 25 degree or 30 degree, and the product is exposed to higher temperatures, it may degrade. Similarly, if there is no security of a product during distribution, it may be actually be rendered a product which is counterfeit because somebody replaces with a fake product, and finally the patient may get a fake product. That's why the distribution security or a supply chain security is very important. Sometimes during distribution, the product goes through improper storage conditions or the warehouses are infested with pests, insects. That may damage the products to a larger extent, both physically as well as microbiologically. So product which was good chemically, everything was fine, but finally there was microbiological contamination because of pests, insects, and fungus and many other areas, because humidity during monsoon period may also lead to such damages to the product. So effective controls are required throughout the product life cycle, which ensures the product quality and ultimately the patient safety, which is the most important objective for us. Now, over the last few years, if you look at the global industry the global pharmaceutical industry, between 2008 and 2014, there were a number of product recalls. That means the product was called back from the market by the company. And many warning letters were issued to pharma companies globally by stringent regulatory agencies like US FDA or PMDA or MHRA. Because as you know, India is proficient in exports to many stringent regulatory agency controlled countries, including US and Europe. And if we look at the total number of recalls, it has shown an increasing trend during 2008 and 2014. Also, at least one pharma facility worldwide has entered into a consent decree. This is a process which is followed globally by US FDA, that there is a written down remediation plan required for companies to go through a corrective action or a preventive action for if they have not followed the practices. 30% of the quality related warning letters issued by US FDA are attributed to India. And I think that's a kind of a wake up call for us, that we need to not only look at the export market, but also India market per se, because the patients are patients everywhere. And we need to be very clear that we need to follow one standard, at least for the baseline requirement of quality. Otherwise, if you look at the 10% of inspections, if you look at, and 4% of drug recalls in the last 5 years are from India. Recently, the number of drug recalls and warning letters to India have shown a decreasing trend, and we have seen China on an increasing trend. So there is an improvement which is happening, but I think a lot needs to be done as far as quality is concerned. So if you look at what are the implications of violation of good manufacturing practices for the companies, there's a business loss, because if there's a warning letter issued, it may result in the fall of the stock prices. There's a reputational damage to the companies, because they are all data available in the public domain, and it can tarnish the image of the company. There's also regulatory influence, because additional inspections may be carried out by the agencies, and it may also decrease the reputation of a company. The competitive disadvantage may be there for such companies which receive warning letters. Also, there's a diversion of the critical time and resources for remediation, and increase in the attrition rate for people who are working in such pharmaceutical companies. Because when there is an import alert or a warning letter, it really affects everybody working in the pharmaceutical company, right from the procurement to supply chain to manufacturing to quality, everywhere, distribution, everybody gets affected. Now, if you just look at today, if you want to become from good to great, Indian pharma could achieve quality excellence by focusing on these 6 different improvement areas, which are being followed by few companies recently, and they have shown an increasing trend in control on assurance of a product quality. The first is establishing robust and seamless data management and documentation, because that is what is checked by the regulatory agencies. Regulatory agency cannot be present every time, all the time. They depend on the data, but if the data is not correct, or if the data is manipulated, it may lead to distrust on the management of the company. Second is ensuring effective and robust investigations. Over the last few years, if you see, we have seen a trend that when there are GMP issues raised by regulatory agencies, there is always a hurry by the companies to give back their report saying that we are now effective and we have revived back from our issue. And what they do is they follow an investigation process. But generally it has been seen that we generally believe in quick fix. We don't follow a very effective and robust investigation process. That means these problems, these quality issues may come back again, and they may not be effective for corrective and prevention controls. The third one is aligning the management systems, with increasing operational complexity. So the top management, the tone at the top is very important in giving a right signal to the people in the pharmaceutical manufacturing or in general in the company that we all need quality. And I think quality is the first and foremost apart from safety, because that's what is very important for the patients and their families. Fourth one is expanding and upskilling the talent pool, because we must make sure we have right people, we have trained people, we have retrained people all the time available to make sure that they understand and they follow good manufacturing practices. The fifth one is designing during R&D, follow a principle of a quality by design. That means the quality should be embedded during the product development and also technology transfer from research and development to the manufacturing. And that's the role of many different cross-functional team members to ensure that the quality is assured. The sixth, and in my opinion, that's the foremost, is to build a culture of quality across the organization. That means everybody respects quality, everybody gives priority to quality. And I see today quality and safety are two important areas which must be given a due importance in every pharmaceutical company to build up a culture of quality. Overall, to assure that the patient always get a safe and effective product all the time. And also our image for delivering a consistent quality product across the world and also for the patients in India is maintained. Let's talk about quality and supply chain management. As I was saying, that if you look at different processes which is followed for developing and manufacturing a product, the first is the procurement. That means the procurement of raw materials, the intermediates, the excipients, the packaging materials like plastics, which are used during manufacturing process. There are many materials other than this. For example, if it is injectables, it is glass vials, rubber stoppers, and things like that. So the quality of procurement is very important. And that's why there are individual controls which are required and essential on procurement, on vendor controls, and to make sure that all the vendors also follow practices which are conducive for increasing the quality of a final product. The second important area is manufacturing. For example, if you take the example of a tablet, these are the different processes which are followed, like granulation. That means the powder is converted into granules. The granules are blended together with other materials. The tablet is then finally compressed using a compression machine or a tablet machine or a capsule machine. Finally, some of the products are coated and then finally it is packed. So all the controls in the form of good manufacturing practices are required during manufacturing operations. But more than that, once the product leaves the manufacturing operations, there are many important areas like logistics. There are various areas throughout the product. It goes to various channels. There's a ground transport, there's air transport, there's also a temperature monitoring which is required during the transportation. Some organizations follow it very rigidly. Many organizations, they feel that it's a very challenging area, and that's where things may go wrong. Also, as I was saying, in warehousing, for control, for storage, and to maintain good storage conditions, good documentation practices to ensure that these products are kept segregated and they don't get mixed up during the warehousing operations. Finally, when the finished goods are released for wholesalers or distributors or retailers, the product goes through various different channels again. Finally, it lands to the hands of a patient. So right from development to the delivery, it's very important that we should look at the quality in the whole life cycle of a product. And that's where the key controls are required. If you look at the takeaways from the session today, we see that quality of pharmaceuticals there are various stages, right from development to the supply chain, which is required. We also saw what do you mean by pharmaceutical equivalence or bioequivalence, and for therapeutic efficacy of a product, bioequivalence is very important because that's where it's important determination for final quality of a product. The government is making efforts now that if we graduate to a WHO GMP guidance, in future we may see bioequivalence as a requirement for launch of a generic product or a different products which are released into the market or given license by the government for manufacturing. We also saw that two similar looking pills may not be similar in efficacy, in safety and purity, because it's not only manufacturing, it's not only during the quality assurance. There's a lot which needs to be done to make sure that the product remains efficacious, it remains stable, it remains pure till the shelf life of a product. Then we also saw the difference between a generics and a branded products. And we also are now looking at a situation where the Indian government is promoting upgradation of a Schedule M to WHO GMP practices and beyond. In future, we may go to a Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention guidance PICS, and it may take many years for us to graduate to a PICS requirement. And the first stage is the WHO GMP, which is a very welcome move for all of us. We also looked at how the quality is assured, what are the different parameters of quality. We also look at that quality is applicable to the whole value chain from development to distribution and not only manufacturing. So we all, to make sure that the patient gets a safe product, the patient gets an efficacious product, we all want to make sure that we finally adopt excellence in quality operations. Quality operations is not only the quality control and quality assurance. It means right from development, the quality of the data, the quality of a development, how robust is the quality of a product which is developed, which is designed during research and development. Finally, to the procurement, to selection of machines, selection of processes, selection of right environment during manufacturing, selection of right controls during manufacturing, whether the high quality water is being used during manufacturing, where the air conditioning controls of temperature and humidity are maintained during each and every part is important. And finally, to the supply chain operations till it reaches in the hands of in the hands of the patient. And that's where we say that the quality of a product is determined finally by the patient. This is all which I want to talk about, why a pill is not just a pill. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I would like to answer them. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Lamba, thank you for those insights. We already have some questions. First question is from Dr. Smita. She asks, as mentioned, bioequivalence or bioavailability is utmost important, and that's not a mandatory requirement in India. How an end user will make sure the product is bioequivalent with Innovator if prescribed, by Innovator if prescribed product is not an Innovator, especially when Indian government is promoting generic formulations.
Yeah, that's a very valid question. So if we really look at today, this is not a requirement. Very recently, the government is putting in regulations for those poorly soluble drugs. They would definitely be first given priority in giving an indication that they must be bioequivalent when the license is granted to a pharmaceutical company. At present, there is no control. That means there are 12,000 pharmaceutical companies approximately in India. After 4 years of a launch of an innovator product in India, any company can approach or request the state drug regulator in various states across India and can get a license to manufacture a product even if it is not therapeutic bioequivalent. And that's where the major difference lies in the quality. On one side, the government is promoting the use of generics, but if you look at generics is fine, and it's important because uh, not only India we are promoting, it's being promoted by US, Europe, Japan, everywhere. But the rule or a guidance or the law in those countries is the product must be bioequivalent. Then the generics can be equivalent, and then we can say we can buy any generic product, but at present that is not the situation. We are hoping that in the next pharmaceutical policy which is being evolved, it was given to the industry for comments in 2017. We hope that in the new regulation, bioequivalence requirement would be a mandatory requirement for patients. Till it is done, the patients should follow the recommendations of the prescriber, the healthcare practitioner.
Yes. Next question from Rekha. And the question is, what happens in polypharmacy when pills of different companies are taken together?
So, in general, if you look at, there are two different things. One is a polypharmacy where we generally end up in having 2 or 3 or 4 products together. Now, this is a knowledge from a pharmaceutical companies who are innovators or the healthcare practitioners, the doctors, the prescribers who know that sometimes when 2 different pills or different products, one for a cardiovascular disease or one for a diabetes, they are given together, they may lead to some problems for the patient. These are called as contraindications. That means sometimes 2 different products cannot be given together. So that's very important that in India, the patient just goes to a pharmacy shop and buys a product, and many times it is easily available on the shelf of the pharmacy shop, which is not the case across the world. Prescription is required. So when the doctor is aware that the 2 products may lead to problems for a patient, those products are not prescribed together. But if the patient on their own goes to a shop and can buy a product over the counter, it may lead sometimes to a problem to the patient because 2 different products may not be taken together because they may create a lot of side effects and other indications which are not desirable for the patient.
Next question from K. Durga Prasad. Coming to distribution, is there any regulation that permits retail pharmacies to supply medicines to customers in multimedia blister packs like in USA?
Can you say again, because is it multimedia or something else?
Yes, multimedia blister packs like in USA.
Yeah, most of the products in India are available in the blister packs, and in US they are available mostly in HTP bottles, and mostly India is a market which favors blister packs because of ease of use by the patients and ease also of administration by the patient.
Yes. Next question is from Santosh. He says, "Thank you for very good presentation. I have a question regarding FDA 483S and warning letter issues with Indian generic players. After having so many cases and many big players are bitten down for FDA inspection issues, why Indian companies are still keep on getting the inspectional issues? I mean, instead of, I mean, we are getting repeated things and still, I mean, the same issue gets repeated."
I think that's a very, very important question to be answered by all of us who are directly or indirectly connected with pharmaceutical industry and healthcare practices in general. As I was saying, there are important controls or gaps which need to be fulfilled. And one of the major controls, which I said, was a culture of quality. And the culture of quality is very essential. It takes a number of years to bring a change from a particular mindset, which is quality by testing, to quality by design, and also following practices which are controlling in nature, which improve the trust of a regulator or in general the management controls. As we have seen, there are a number of companies in India who have faced these warning letters and import alerts during the last 5-6 years. And in some cases, there was a time when they were increasing, but a lot of control has been brought out by consortium of these companies together by working with the regulator and also with number of training programs being conducted. So there is a change which has come up, but this change is still not complete, and it's not easy to bring this change because most difficult part for a change is a cultural change or a change in the mindset of people. It requires a lot of time. So that's why it is important for pharmaceutical companies to implement more automated controls in the system, which has low reliance on the manual controls, because manual controls are prone to get manipulated, or there may be a situation where the pharmaceutical company management is very clear about high quality product, but somebody down the line during manufacturing, just to make sure he or she has to leave the company in time, they may rush up things. They may go just leaving things, and it may lead to some errors in the system. Those kind of a very high end kind of a controls are possible if your systems are automated both in manufacturing as well as in quality control labs. 50% or more of the problems for these companies happen during quality control, and that's why automated control is required in the labs. Some of the companies who have implemented these controls are very successful and they have come out of those warning letters and import restrictions. But some organizations, they're still going through it because if it is very complex situation with number of products getting affected, it takes time for those companies to come back to the same level of control which is desired. So that is why you see today in India, we are in work in progress. There is a control which has happened, there's an improvement which has happened, but still a lot needs to be done in future.
Yes, a lot of scope in future. So we'll be taking the last question, and this is from Shivang Swaminarayan. How much price escalation is expected in cost of product if it were to match bioequivalence with original molecule innovation or manufacturing company?
Very good question. And I think this is one of the burning questions today when we are promoting WHO GMP compliance in the country. It's a myth that if bioequivalence is made mandatory, the cost of medicines or the prices will increase. It's not the case. Bioequivalence testing is required once to assure to give a proof of efficacy of a product or bioequivalence of a product, so that finally the patient gets a benefit. These studies right now are not very expensive. There was a time these studies were required to be done in US or Europe, in other countries. Today, we have homegrown companies who are very proficient in these bioequivalent studies in India, and then they are being certified by the regulator here in India. And we have seen a tremendous decrease in the cost of doing bioequivalence in the country today. So overall, a company manufacturing thousands and millions of these pills and tablets or capsules, actually per unit cost of this increase is very minimal. So you will see just a kind of a 2%, 3% increase overall in the increase, and it is acceptable today because that's the basic efficacy control which is required. So we don't see a much increase in the price of the products after bioequivalence testing is made mandatory by the government.
Yep. All right. With that, we'll wrap up with today's webinar. Thank you, Dr. Sanjeet Singh Lamba, Managing Director, ASI India, for that presentation on the topic, why a pill is not just a pill. If you have any other questions, please send them at editor@ethealthworld.com. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take all the questions due to time constraints. It was an engaging and insightful talk, and hope all the participants have enjoyed the session. The recording of this webinar will be made available on ethealthworld.com. Thank you everyone for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you very much for this patient listening.